Hello, my YouTube audience. I'm the Crime Whispers, here to guide you through tonight's unsettling tale. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep. So before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now settle in, relax, and let the darkness unfold. The cameras were everywhere, behind the kitchen clock, tucked behind the bathroom mirror, even nestled inside the houseplants at first. I thought I was imagining it, but no, someone had been watching my every move. For it was supposed to be an easy job. My college roommate's parents needed someone to watch their house while they enjoyed a 2-week European vacation. The pay was great, the house was beautiful, and I'd have plenty of time to work on my thesis. A win-win, or so I thought. The first few days were uneventful. I'd wake up, make coffee, spend a few hours working on my laptop, and maybe swim in the backyard pool. If the weather was nice, it was comfortable, almost too comfortable. Then, on the 4th night, I started to feel it, the prickling sensation of eyes on me. I'd be reading on the couch, and suddenly glance over my shoulder, or stand in the shower convinced I heard movement just beyond the curtain. I told myself it was nothing, just nerves, from being alone in an unfamiliar house. But then I found the first camera. I was dusting the mantel. Yes, I take my house-sitting duties seriously when I noticed one of the family photos looked a little off. The frame was thicker than the others. Curious, I picked it up and froze. A tiny lens, no bigger than a pinhead, glinted from the corner of the frame in that moment. Every uneasy glance over my shoulder made sense. My heart pounded as I searched the house from top to bottom. By the end of the hour, I'd found 6 more cameras hidden in the living room, kitchen, my bedroom, even the bathroom. This wasn't ordinary home security. Someone had gone to great lengths to cover every inch of this house. The question was why, and who? I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? For all I knew, the homeowners had installed them themselves still. Why hide them so well? No, I needed more information first, and I was going to get IT the next day. I pretended everything was normal. I went about my routine, careful not to give away that I'd discovered the cameras. Meanwhile, I made a map of where each one was placed. Most of them seemed to be wireless, likely transmitting to a receiver somewhere nearby. If I could find that, maybe I could find the person watching that night. I put my plan in motion. I turned on every TV and radio in the house, cranking the volume to mask any sound I made. Then I began my search. The basement, nothing. First floor, nothing. Second floor, I was starting to lose hope. Then I saw it. The attic access panel in the hallway ceiling, slightly ajar. Bingo, heart pounding. I pulled down the ladder, every creak making my chest tighten. Would I find more cameras, or someone waiting for me? The attic was dark and musty, filled with boxes and old furniture, but in the far corner, a faint blue glow caught my eye. I crept forward and found a laptop, hooked up to a bank of small monitors, each one showing a different room in the house. On one screen, I saw myself, standing in the attic, bathed in that eerie light. I'd found the surveillance hub. The laptop was password protected, but the browser history wasn't completely cleared. A few entries remained, and when I saw them, my blood ran cold. Multiple searches for my name, my social media accounts, my university records. They weren't just watching the house, they were watching me. Then I heard it, a car door slamming outside. Panic surged. I rushed to the attic window. A dark figure was walking toward the house. I had to get out. I scrambled down the ladder, grabbed my phone and wallet, and ran for the stairs. Just as the front door opened, heavy footsteps echoed in the entryway, slow, deliberate. They knew I was here, trapped on the 2nd floor. I darted into the master bedroom and locked the door. It wouldn't hold long. The window was my only chance. I threw it open. Cold night air rushing over me. It was a drop, but a sloped section of roof led toward the pool below. The doorknob rattled, then a loud crash. The door frame splintered. I climbed out and let go, sliding down the rough tiles. I slammed into the gutter and tumbled the rest of the way, splashing into the icy water. The shock stole my breath, but instinct took over. I hauled myself out, shivering, and sprinted for the back fence behind me. The back door burst open, Flashlight beams cutting through the night. I didn't stop. I ran through backyards, down alleys, across streets until I stumbled into a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. The waitress took one look at me, dripping wet and wide-eyed, and reached for the phone. "Honey, are you all right?" I just nodded. I need to call the police." The next hours were a blur. I told the officers everything they found, the cameras, the equipment in the attic. But the intruder was gone. The homeowners swore they knew nothing. The investigation is still open. I don't live alone anymore. Every creak in the floorboards makes my heart race. Every flicker of light in a window makes me wonder if someone's watching. The question that haunts me most isn't who it was, it's why beyond. If they're still out there waiting. His face lit up with relief when he saw me slow down. I rolled the passenger window down just a crack, rain hammering the roof so hard I had to raise my voice. "Where you headed?" I called out. "Just down the road a bit," he replied. His voice unexpectedly soft. Car broke down trying to get to the next town. I'd be real grateful for a ride. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to keep driving, to leave him in the blur of my rearview mirror, but the rain was relentless, and something in his eyes made me pause. "Hop in," I said. Unlocking the door, he slid into the seat, dripping wet, carrying the sharp smell of rain-soaked clothes, and something else I couldn't quite place. "Thanks, man," he said with a quick smile. "You're a lifesaver." I pulled back onto the road, wipers working double time against the downpour. "I'm Mark," I offered, trying to cut through the awkward silence. "John," he replied, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Really appreciate this. Not many people stop on a night like this." We drove in silence for a while, the rhythmic swish of the wipers filling the air out of the corner of my eye. I studied him. He looked younger than I'd first thought. Mid-20s, maybe, worn clothes, but clean, almost boyish. "So, what happened to your car?" I asked. "Mostly to break the quiet," he shrugged. "Old junker finally died on me. I was headed to my sister's place." He trailed off, staring out into the rain. Something about his tone didn't quite sit right with me, but I chalked it up to exhaustion and kept my eyes on the road. 20 minutes later, he spoke again. "Mind if we take a little detour? Turnoffs coming up, shorter route." I frowned. "Thought you were headed to the next town." "Yeah," he said, "but my sister lives just outside of it. This way's quicker. Trust me against my better judgment." I took the exit. The road narrowed, winding into dense forest. If anything, the rain came down harder. "You sure this is the right way?" I asked, unease creeping in just a little further. He said, eyes locked on the road ahead. Minutes later, he said, "Pull over here." I slowed, peering through the windshield at nothing but trees and darkness. "There's nothing." I stopped, mid-sentence. Something cold and hard pressed against my ribs. Turned my head. The smile was gone in its place. The flat, dead-eyed stare of a predator and a knife glinting in his hand. "Engine off, keys," he said, his voice low. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I obeyed. "Out now." Rain soaked me instantly as I stepped out. He kept the knife steady, his expression unreadable. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking everything. He said simply, "Wallet, phone, watch, then we take a walk." I handed them over, my mind racing. We were miles from anywhere. No houses, no headlights, no help. "Move," he ordered, gesturing toward the trees. We trudged through thick underbrush, branches clawing at my face, mud sucking at my shoes. He followed close behind, the occasional prod of the knife keeping me moving. After what felt like an eternity, we emerged into a clearing. A rotting cabin squatted in the center, its windows dark inside. He said, shoving me toward the door. The air inside was damp and moldy, peeling wallpaper curling from the walls. A single battery lantern on a crooked table threw jagged shadows across the room. "Sit," he ordered. I dropped into a chair in the corner. He pulled a length of rope from a duffel bag I hadn't noticed and began tying my hands behind my back. "Why are you doing this?" I finally managed. He looked up, cold amusement in his eyes. "Why does anyone do anything? Money, power, survival, take your pick," as he paced, spinning the knife in his hand. His words sank in. You see, Mark, he glanced at me. People like you, the helpers, the good Samaritans. You're the easiest marks, so trusting makes my work simple. His work, that word sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with my soaked clothes over the next hour. He forced me at knife point to drain my bank accounts, max out my cards, and take out loans in my name. Each transaction felt like watching pieces of my future being ripped away. When it was over, he cut the rope to choices. He said, stepping back, walk out that door, and try your luck in the woods. Or he glanced at the knife on the table. Try to fight me, I wouldn't recommend it. He slung the duffel over his shoulder and headed for the door. Oh, and if I were you. He paused. Looking back at me, I'd wait at least 15 minutes before leaving, and then he was gone. I sat there, heart hammering, listening to the rain pound the roof, wondering if he was still out there. It was at least an hour before he left, just to be safe. Then he was gone, vanishing into the rain, and leaving me in the cabin with nothing but the sound of water on the roof, and the crushing weight of what had just happened. I don't know how long I sat there, numb and shivering, when I finally stumbled out into the downpour. The first hints of dawn were breaking over the trees. It took me 6 hours to find the road by then. John was long gone along with my car, and every cent to my name. The police were sympathetic, but not optimistic. Men like John, they said, are experts at disappearing. Months later, I'm still dealing with the fallout. Credit ruined, savings drained, and a constant jumpiness that makes me flinch at every shadow and doubt every kindness. But I'm alive slowly. I'm rebuilding, and if I've learned one thing, it's this. Sometimes, the most dangerous predators look just like everyone else. The forest was supposed to be my escape, a place to clear my head and reconnect with nature. Instead, it became a nightmare that would haunt me for years. The trip had seemed harmless enough. I'd been burning the candle at both ends for months, working on a massive project. When it finally wrapped, I knew I needed to decompress. A solo camping trip in the Cascade Mountains sounded perfect. Just me, my tent, and miles of pristine wilderness. I'd camped before, but never alone. The idea was both thrilling and a little unnerving. I chose a remote spot, about a day's hike from the nearest ranger station. Early autumn painted the forest in gold and crimson, the air crisp with the scent of pine and wild herbs. The hike in was more challenging than I expected, but by the time I reached a small clearing near a babbling stream, my muscles ached in a good way. That first night was peaceful, better sleep than I'd had in weeks. The next day I explored, took photos, and soaked in the quiet. Everything felt perfect until I returned to camp that evening. The air smelled wrong, acrid, chemical, completely out of place in the middle of the woods. The forest itself was quieter. The usual insect and bird chatter, absent my instincts, prickled my gear. Was where I'd left it, but near the fire pit. Fresh footprints, not many. Was debating whether to leave when I heard voices to men emerging from the trees. They wore dark clothing, boots, gloves. Each carried a duffel bag, moving like they knew the land. This looks good, one said, dropping his bag with a metallic clank far enough from the trails, but still accessible. The other replied. Then they unpacked chemical jugs, tubing, hot plates, a mobile meth lab. Panic rose in my throat. I couldn't move without being seen, and I had no doubt they'd killed to protect their operation, so I stayed hidden, motionless. As they worked more, men arrived after dark. They talked in low voices about distribution routes and meeting points. Then I shifted, a twig snapping under me. Heads turned. What was that? One said, hand moving to a gun. Two men came toward me, flashlights sweeping the undergrowth. I bolted. Shouts erupted. Footsteps pounded behind me. A gunshot cracked the night, the bullet splintering a tree. I ran harder, aiming for the sound of water. Trees broke, revealing a 30-foot drop to a river below. No time to think, another shot rang out, and I jumped. The icy water knocked the air from my lungs. The current dragged me downstream until, hours later, I crawled onto a pebble-strewn bank, soaked, shivering, and lost. 2 days later, following the river, I found a trail, and then a ranger station. The D launched a manhunt, but the men were gone, leaving behind only scraps of their lullaby. Still camp, but never alone. The forest I once loved now feels watched. Every snap of a twig sends my heart racing. Sometimes I wake from dreams of running. That chemical smell still in my nose. I survived, but the woods took something from me. The first call came at 1:17 a.m. I remember because I was staring at the clock, willing the hands to move faster. Toward the end of my shift, I should have let it ring. My name's Alex, and I work the graveyard shift at WKRP, a tiny radio station in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Most nights are easy. Play some music, take a few requests, stay awake. But that night wasn't like most. The first few hours passed in the usual haze of Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and Bob Seger, punctuated by local ads and weather updates. The studio was small, just a soundboard, a couple of monitors, and a window looking out on an empty parking lot. Then the phone rang, and the nightmare began. It was just me, the music, and the hum of the studio, until 1:17 a.m. When the request line lit up, I answered with my usual spiel. You're live on WKRP. What can I play for you tonight? Silence. I was about to hang up, assuming it was another prank call, when I heard it breathing slow, deliberate hello. I asked, uneasy. Play something for me. A man's voice said. It was low, almost a whisper, with an odd quality. I couldn't play. Sure thing, I replied, forcing cheer into my voice. What would you like to hear? Surprised me then. The line went dead. I shrugged it off. Late night callers could be strange, and this was hardly the weirdest request I'd ever had. I queued up Hotel California and went back to scrolling my phone. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same number, WKRP. What can I do for you? You've got good taste, the man said. Same voice, same unsettling calm. What else can you play for me? A chill ran up my spine. Any preferences? I asked, trying to keep steady. I trust your judgment. Click. Now, I was officially on edge. I glanced out the window. Just my beat-up Honda under the flickering streetlight. No one in sight. I played Stairway to Heaven, more to steady my nerves than anything else. When it ended, the phone rang again. I hesitated before picking up. I can see why people listen to you, he said. His tone had shifted harder, more intense. The way you choose the songs, the way you speak, it's captivating. My blood went cold. Who is this? A low chuckle, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Just a fan. Alex, a very dedicated fan. He knew my name, my real name. We never used them on air, only our DJ handles. Mine was the Night Owl. Look, I said firmly, I don't know who you are, but this isn't funny. Don't call again. Oh, but I will, he said, voice dropping to a chilling whisper. I'm closer than you think. I'm watching. The line went dead suddenly. The windows felt like glass invitations for someone to look in. My skin prickled with the sensation of unseen eyes. The next hour was a blur of paranoia. Every shadow seemed to shift. Every creak of the building made me flinch. Then, at 3:02 a.m., the phone rang again. You should be more careful, Alex, the voice said, calm and almost soothing, making it worse. You never know who might be listening or watching. What do you want? I whispered. To play a game. I'll give you 2 songs. Choose right, and nothing happens. Choose wrong. He let the pause linger. And there will be consequences. This is insane. I said. I'm calling the police. I wouldn't do that. Not if you want your sister to remain safe. My heart stopped. What did you say? Sarah blew shutters on the house. Elm Street. Be a shame if something happened to her. Panic surged through me. Leave her out of this. That's up to you. Play the game. She's fine. Refuse, and you understand the rest. I clenched my fists. Fine. What's the first choice? Asterisk. His tone turned silky. Sympathy for the devil or House of the Rising Sun. I hesitated, racking my brain for some hidden clue, then finally said, House of the Rising Sun. A long, breathless pause. Good choice. Play it now. I obeyed for the next 2 hours. He called again and again. 2 songs each time. Sometimes he dropped cryptic hints. Other times, it felt completely random. My hands trembled on the soundboard. My shirt clung to my back with sweat. By 5 a.m., I hadn't chosen wrong. Once one final call, You've done well, Alex. Now, the last round. Don't fear the Reaper or Stairway to Heaven. Choose carefully. Both songs spoke of death. Was that the point? Or was I overthinking it? I went with my gut. Stairway to Heaven. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then congratulations, you've won the game for... Now relief hit me like a wave. But it was short-lived. It's over. I asked for now, he repeated, his smile almost audible. You've proven yourself. I look forward to our next game. The line went dead as dawn's first light crept through the window. I signed off and fled the studio. Sarah answered when I called, still safe. Completely unaware I didn't tell her, but deep down, I knew the truth. I'd never feel safe in that booth again. Somewhere out there, a man with a voice like a shadow was waiting, planning his next move in a game I never agreed to play. And the next night, as I reached for the studio door, my hands still shook because once someone finds you like that, they can always find you again. The moment I pushed aside that old painting and saw the tiny red light blinking back at me, I knew my life would never be the same. What I thought was a charming fixer-upper was about to become my personal house of horrors. I had always dreamed of owning my own home, somewhere I could put down roots and leave my mark. When I found a listing for the old Victorian on Maple Street, it felt like fate. The price was shockingly low for the neighborhood, and although the place needed some work, its bones were solid. The real estate agent, a bubbly woman named Karen, seemed almost too eager to close the deal. Looking back, I should have seen that as a red flag, but I was blinded by excitement. The day I moved in was a blur of boxers, furniture, and renovation plans. It wasn't until that evening, as I was hanging a mirror in the hallway, that I noticed something strange behind one of the old paintings left by the previous owner. A small, red light blinked in the darkness. At first, I thought it might be part of an ancient security system, but as I looked closer, my stomach tightened. It was a camera, small, modern, hidden, heart pounding. I began searching the rest of the house. Another camera was in a vent in the living room, one behind the microwave in the kitchen, one tucked behind the bathroom mirror. By the time I finished, I had found 12 cameras in total. 12. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. Someone had been watching me, given the placement of some of the cameras. They'd been watching everything. My hands shook as I called the police. They arrived quickly, documenting each device with grim expressions. 8 specialists would have to remove and analyze them while they worked. I sat on the porch, trying to process the violation. This house, the place I had been so thrilled to own just hours earlier, now felt poisoned. I couldn't stop thinking about the private moments those lenses had seen. By midnight, the police advised me to stay somewhere else. I packed a small bag and drove to a hotel, where I barely slept. Every shadow in the room felt like it was watching me. The next morning, I met Detective Rodriguez, stern, sharp-eyed, but with a softness in her gaze. Miss Johnson, she said, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. These cameras were high-end, professionally installed. This wasn't some amateur. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. My stomach sank. Do you know who it was? Not yet, she replied. We're looking into everyone who's had access to the property in the past few years. Previous owners, real estate agents, maintenance crews. She paused. Is there anyone who might want to watch you? An ex, maybe? I shook my head. No, I'm boring. I can't imagine why anyone would. She nodded. We've removed all the cameras we found, but your home is now a crime scene. It might be a while before you can move back in. I left the station feeling hollow. My savings were tied up in a house I couldn't live in. Weeks passed. I bounced between hotels and friends' spare rooms, life on pause, and then the strange occurrences began. Unknown callers hanging up when I answered a car parked on my street. Every time I passed the house once, I thought I saw someone in my window, but when I looked again, they were gone. A month later, Rodriguez called me in again. We've hit a dead end, she admitted. The cameras were bought with cash in multiple states. The installation was professional. The elderly couple who sold me the house were innocente, left in a daze. The idea that I might never know who had violated my home, and why, was unbearably if the police couldn't find answers. Maybe I could. I knew that house better than anyone. Maybe there was a clue only I would recognize the next morning. I stood on the porch with my key in hand, my heart pounding. I wasn't here to live in it again. I was here to hunt it. Felt strange. I was breaking into someone else's home, instead of returning to my own, taking a slow, steady breath. I unlocked the door. The house looked exactly as I'd left it. Yet something was off. Rooms that once felt full of possibility now seemed menacing. Every shadow looked deep enough to hide a threat. I moved from room to room, deliberate and careful, scanning for anything out of place. In the master bedroom, I noticed something I'd missed before, a tiny mark on the baseboard. Kneeling, I realized it was a small arrow pointing toward the closet. My hands trembled as I opened the door. At first, nothing but in the back corner. I saw it a seam in the wall, misaligned by just a hair. I pressed a small panel, popped open. Inside was a USB drive. For a long moment, I just stared. Should I give it to the police? Look myself? Curiosity won. I left the house quickly, unable to shake the sense that eyes followed me all the way to the hotel. In my room, I slid the drive into my laptop. Hundreds of video files appeared, years worth, not just of me, but of the previous owners and strangers I didn't recognize, all of them caught in private moments. Unaware, the most recent folder was labeled with my name, and these videos weren't just from inside the house, they were from everywhere. Me at work, me shopping, me having coffee with friends. The cameras had been only the beginning. Whoever this was had been tracking me, recording every move. The timestamps on the latest files told me it wasn't over. I slammed the laptop shut, heart hammering. The violation wasn't confined to my home, it had seeped into my entire life. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text was short. Enjoying the house, Sarah. Don't worry, I'm still watching. Always watching. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. The instant I saw his eyes in my rearview mirror, I knew I'd made a mistake. What should have been a routine delivery had turned into a trap, and now I was stuck in my own car with a man who clearly had no plans to let me go. Was supposed to be my last run of the night. I'd been driving for DoorDash for 6 months, picking up extra cash to pay down my student loans. Most nights were uneventful. Pick up, drop off, repeat. This night was different from the start. The order came in just as I was about to clock out. Some hole-in-the-wall joint I'd never heard of, on the outskirts of town. The delivery address was even farther out. A lone house down a long, winding road. My gut said no. The tip said yes. I should have listened to my gut. The restaurant was a rundown shack with flickering neon and windows so dirty you couldn't see inside. The man who handed me the food barely looked up, just shoved the greasy bag into my hands. The road to the delivery was worse. Fewer houses, narrower turns, trees pressing in on both sides. GPS kept cutting out, leaving me to follow the rough directions I'd memorized. Finally, I found the mailbox. The driveway was long, unpaved, and swallowed by shadows. No lights on in the house. I thought about leaving the bag at the road, but the promised tip pushed me forward. The house looked abandoned, paint peeling, shutters dangling. No car in sight. Movement flickered in one of the windows. I took a deep breath, grabbed the food, and stepped onto the porch. Gravel crunched under my shoes, each step heavier than the last one. I rang the bell. The sound echoed inside like it had nowhere to go. After a long moment, the door opened. He was tall, gaunt, deep-set eyes that seemed to pin me in place. He smiled, but it didn't reach them. "Ah, my dinner has arrived," he said. Voice to formal, "Please, come in, I'll get your payment." Every instinct screamed to run, but my feet carried me inside. The interior smelled of dust and rot. He vanished into another room, muttering. That's when I saw the photos, dozens of them, all women, many in candid, unaware moments, some in delivery uniforms. My blood went cold. I turned to leave, but he was suddenly there, blocking the door. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, voice low. "We haven't even had dinner yet." His grip on my arm was iron. "I've been waiting for someone like you." He said softly. What happened next is a blur. Struggling, something breaking, me running, the sound of his footsteps pounding after May reached my car, fumbling for the keys, his hand catching my shoulder. I spun, keys clenched between my fingers. Catching him off guard, he dove in, locked the doors, started the engine. He slammed into my window as I tore down the driveway in reverse. I thought I was free. I was wrong. Headlights appeared in my rear view. He was chasing me for the next hour. I drove blind turns, desperate to lose him. He stayed on me, sometimes pulling alongside to force me off the road. My phone had no signal. Gas was running. Lothan Salvation, a gas station. Lights blazing. I skidded in, leaning on the horn, and ran inside. Call the police, I gasped. To the startled attendant, my pursuer's car slowed outside, then sped past. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I told them everything the next day. They said they'd found the house. It was empty, no man, no photos. I quit DoorDash. That day the extra cash wasn't worth the shadows that now followed me everywhere. Weeks passed, no sign of him, but sometimes I'd see a tall figure in the corner of my eye, or headlights in the mirror that stayed a little too long. I moved, changed my name, tried to disappear, but late at night, when the roads are empty and headlights appear behind me, I feel it again, the panic rising, the weight of his stare in my mirror. Because you never really escape something like that. The fear becomes a part of you, part of me. Feels like a shadow follows me everywhere. Every stranger could be a threat. Every dark road could lead to danger. Tried to move on, new job, new friends, even dating again, but only in public places. Never letting anyone know where I live. The experience changed me in ways I'm still unraveling. I'm more cautious now, more attuned to my surroundings. I've taken self-defense classes, carry pepper spray, and double-check every lock. Some call it paranoia. I call it survival. The worst part is the not knowing if he's still out there, if I'll ever truly be safe. Every unknown number, every unexpected delivery, every car that looks like his sends that cold rush of fear through me. But I refuse to let him win. I refuse to live in constant fear, so I keep going, day by day, trying to reclaim the safety I lost that night. Some days I want to lock myself away, but I push through. The alternative would be letting him take more than he already has. I know now that evil can hide behind a smile and a promise of a generous tip, but I also know I'm stronger than I ever imagined. Survived that night, I'll survive whatever comes next. So, to the man who tried to make me his victim, you failed. I'm still here, still fighting. You stole my sense of security, but you didn't take my life or my spirit. One day, I'll feel safe again. Until then, I'll keep checking over my shoulder and watching my rearview mirror, because the night isn't over yet, and the road ahead is long and dark. I never thought a name tag could be terrifying, until I saw Jake Morrison pinned to his chest. My blood ran cold. Jake, the quiet kid from chemistry class, now stood before me, his eyes burning with an intensity I had never seen. This wasn't the reunion I'd expected. It was the start of a nightmare. It had been 10 years since I'd walked the halls of Westfield High, a decade of building a career, making new friends, shedding the awkwardness of my teenage years. When the invitation for our 10-year reunion arrived, I hesitated, but curiosity won. I wanted to see how everyone had changed, and if I'm honest, to compare myself to them. If I'd known what waited for me, I'd have burned that invitation. The gym had been transformed for the night. Streamers, balloons, a sad disco ball. The air smelled faintly of punch and nostalgia. I slipped in quietly, scanning familiar faces. The former football captain, now with a beer gut, the head cheerleader, smiling too brightly. Everyone seemed desperate to prove how well they'd done. I was about to grab a drink when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Sarah, he said, smiling. I was hoping you'd be here. Jake had been forgettable. In high school, quiet, average looking, always in the back of class. We'd worked on a chemistry project once, but I couldn't recall a real conversation now. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. It's been a while, I said. Oh, I've been great. he replied. Almost too eagerly. I've thought about you a lot. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. I brushed it off. This was harmless. Forgettable, Jake. I tried to excuse myself, but his grip tightened around my arm. Let me get you a drink, he insisted, steering me toward the Boraz. We waited. Jake talked non-stop about my job, where I lived, even my cat's name. I froze. I'd never posted most of that online. How do you know all this? I asked. He smiled. I like to keep track of old friends, especially special ones. The bartender handed us our drinks. Jake's eyes never left my face for the rest of the night. He was everywhere, waiting outside the restroom, appearing when I stepped out for air. Remember our chemistry project? He asked under the night sky. I learned so much from that, not just about chemicals, but about you, the way you bit your lip, the smell of your shampoo. Your laugh. Alarm bells rang. That was a long time ago. Jake, I said, it doesn't feel long to me, he murmured. I've waited so long for this night, for the chance to tell you how I feel. I think I should go. I said you can't, he hissed, gripping my wrist. Not yet. I tore free and ran into the gym, scanning the crowd. No one noticed. Jake's voice cut through the noise. After everything I've done for you. What are you talking about? I asked. We've spoken every day. He said you just didn't know it was me. The anonymous messages, the feeling of being watched, the strange gifts left at my door. It was you. I whispered. You understand now, he said, stepping closer. We're meant to be together. Stay away from me. I'm not crazy. I love you for 10 years while you ignored me, but that ends tonight. He lunged. I bolted through the crowd, burst into the parking lot, and dove into my car, locking the doors just as he slammed against the window. Don't do this, he shouted. I started the engine and sped away, watching his figure shrink in the rearview mirror. But even from a distance, I could still feel his eyes on me. Knew Jake's obsession was real and dangerous. I checked into a motel under a fake name, flinching at every sound. Convinced he'd find me. Days blurred into weeks. I changed my phone number, deleted social media, even thought about moving to a new city, but the fear stayed. Every time I saw a man who looked like Jake, every time an unknown number lit up my phone, panic rose in my throat. Police eventually uncovered proof of his stalking, hidden cameras in my apartment, a notebook detailing my every move. He was arrested but made bail. The trial is still pending now. I live with my head on a swivel. I've learned to notice shadows, to listen to my gut when something feels wrong. The carefree girl who walked into that reunion is gone, replaced by someone sharper, more cautious. But I refuse to let Jake win. I won't let his obsession define me. Therapy helps. I'm learning to uncoil the constant tension, to live on my own terms. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that chemistry project we did together. How could I have known a high school assignment would lead here? That the quiet boy in the back of class would become the man who stalks my dreams. I don't have all the answers, but I have determination. Jake took my sense of safety, but not my strength. I survived his obsession, his stalking, his attack. I'll survive whatever comes next. I'm a survivor now. No reunion, no fear, no obsession will change that. The girl who walked into that gym is gone. The woman who walked out is stronger than ever, and ready for whatever's ahead. The glint of chrome in my rearview mirror told me this wasn't going to be an ordinary drive home. I didn't know it yet, but those motorcycles were about to turn a quiet Texas back road into a highway to hell. It was past midnight. I'd just finished my late shift at the diner, driving my battered Chevy through miles of dark countryside. The road stretched ahead, a black ribbon cutting through empty farmland. Old country music hummed from the radio, my voice joining in. 10 miles outside town, I spotted 2 faint lights in my mirror, growing larger. Fast motorcycles at first. I thought nothing of it, but instead of passing, they fell into formation behind me and stayed there, 5 or 6 of them riding in a tight V, like a flock of metal geese. Their engines drowned out my radio. My hands tightened on the wheel. Then one pulled up beside me, visor reflecting my taillights, the blank helmet staring in. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them without warning. He swerved toward me. I jerked the wheel, tires spitting gravel before I regained control. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a joyride they were playing with. May pressed the accelerator 70, 80, 90 miles per hour, but they matched my speed effortlessly. My phone had no signal. The road offered no escape. When I spotted a gas station ahead, I pushed the Chevy harder. Safety light people, then impact my bumper, jolted as one slammed into me. From behind the bikes swarmed in, hemming me in on all sides, handlebars scraping my doors. I made a choice. If I was going down, I'd make it messy. I slammed on the brakes. 2 bikes clipped my bumper and skidded across the asphalt. The others swerved. I cut hard right, bouncing off the road toward the gas station's driveway. My teeth rattled, my vision blurred, but I didn't stop. I hit the lot at full speed, tires screaming as I stopped inches from the storefront. I was out of the car and through the door before the engine had even died. Call the police, I gasped to the startled clerk. There are men after me. He didn't ask questions, just grabbed the phone. I peered through the glass, but the highway was empty. The bikers were gone when police arrived. My battered car proved my story, but they doubted they'd find anything. Gangs like this, they said, vanish fast. They offered to escort me home. I refused. My sister came instead. 4 days afterward, I jumped at every motorcycle engine, avoided the highway, carried pepper spray in my pocket. The police never found them. No other reports, no accidents. If those men had never existed except in my nightmares, sometimes late at night, I wonder if I imagined the whole thing. If the exhaustion from that drive had conjured those phantom riders out of thin air. But then I see my car. It's dents and scrapes, the kind no insurance will cover, and I know it was really. Still drive that highway. Sometimes work demands it, but never at night. And never alone, even in broad daylight, surrounded by other cars. My shoulders tense whenever a motorcycle appears in my rear view, because now I know the truth most people never have to face. Monsters aren't always hiding under your bed, or in your closet. Sometimes they're out on the open road, faces hidden behind reflective visors, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when they do, all you can do is drive like hell and pray you make it out alive. The moment I stepped into that forest clearing, I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. The air reeked of chemicals. A cluster of makeshift tents stood under the trees. Hard-eyed men froze mid-task to stare at me. This wasn't a campsite. It was something much worse. As a botanist, the forest had always been my sanctuary. The Pacific Northwest, with its misty canopy and rich biodiversity, was paradise. I'd spent years cataloging rare species here, alone, but never lonely. This trip was supposed to be routine, a week-long research hike, chasing rumors of a rare orchid that could make my career for 3 days. I wandered deeper, camping by streams, filling my field journal with sketches and notes. On the 4th day, I strayed from the main trail. A local had told me the orchids thrived in remote, hidden pockets. I followed my GPS, marking my path, until the forest's song faded. No birds, no rustle of life, just a silence so heavy it prickled the back of my neck. I should have turned back instead. Curiosity urged me forward. Then came the sharp chemical smell. Solvents, maybe, and something acrid I couldn't place. Voices murmured ahead. I crept closer. The clearing opened before me. 6 men, industrial equipment, a large blue barrel at the center. I didn't need to get closer to know it was a meth lab. My pulse thundered in my ears. I eased backward, willing my boots to stay silent. They didn't. A branch snapped. The sound cracked through the clearing like a gunshot. Every head turned for a breath. No one moved. Then someone shouted, "Get her!" and chaos erupted. I ran. Branches whipped my face. Roots clawed at my ankles. A gunshot echoed, and I ducked instinctively, lungs burning. I didn't care where I was going, only away. When the shouts finally faded, I stopped, trembling. I was lost. My pack, food, and compass were still at camp. All I had was a water bottle, a first aid kit, and my journal. Night came fast. I found shelter in a dense thicket, curling into myself. Too afraid to sleep, the next days blurred, I walked toward the rising sun. Hid at night, drank from streams. When my water ran out, hunger hollowed me out once. I heard a helicopter and chased the sound, but it was gone before I reached open sky on the fourth day. I spotted a weathered trail marker. Relief nearly dropped me to my knees. I followed it to a fire road, limping on blistered feet at dusk. A Forest Service truck appeared, and I stumbled into the road, waving frantically, wrapped in a blanket. In the back of the truck, I finally let myself believe I was safe. The lab was dismantled days later, but its operators had vanished. My research was put on hold. Even now, months later, the deep forest fills me with unease. My nightmares are filled with endless trees and unseen pursuers, but I'm healing. I still work in the field, though never alone, and in safer terrain someday. I hope to return to the deep woods, not because I've forgotten the danger, but because they're part of me. I know now that beauty and danger can share the same space, and I know I'm stronger than I ever imagined. I survived one. Break into scenes with breathing room right now. Everything is stacked together with minimal paragraphing and horror. Pauses are weapons. They let the reader's imagination fill the silence. Example. We're fine, Sarah, Emma said. Her voice flat. Everything is fine. I laughed nervously. All right, bedtime. They didn't move to tighten descriptions, so Scaresland sharpens it. Of her voice, a raspy parody of her usual childish tone. You might go with something like her voice was too deep, too hollow, like something was speaking through her short sentences. When the threat appears, gives faster pace, more panic. 3. Plant earlier dread clues in the babysitting piece. You could make the off feelings start subtly earlier. Mention the house is unusually cold. Have the family cat refuse to enter the living room. A strange smell lingering upstairs. That way the black-eyed reveal feels inevitable rather than sudden. 4. Keep the two stories clearly separate. The neighbor piece is a completely new horror hook. If you present them in one flow, it feels like the first story is being cut off mid-breath. A clean chapter break, maybe even a hard tonal shift, will make the second one land harder. First noticed it late one night. Harold, my neighbor, dragging a large heavy bag to his basement door. For just a split second, I could have sworn the bag moved. Then he disappeared inside, and I told myself it was just a trick of the light, probably old garbage. I reasoned nothing to worry about. The next morning, everything seemed perfectly normal. Harold left for work with his usual briefcase, looking every bit the respectable suburban professional. He even waved at me, and I waved back, feeling foolish for my late-night imagination. But then it happened. Again and again, always late at night, always when he thought no one was watching. The dragging, the struggle with the bag, the vanishing into the basement. Each time, my certainty grew. This was not normal. I started paying closer attention. His name was Harold, polite, a bit reserved, an accountant in the city, kept to himself. But that wasn't unusual in our neighborhood still. There were little things that didn't add up. His trash cans were always nearly empty on collection day. A strange chemical smell sometimes drifted from his property at night, and once I caught him standing in his backyard, staring into the distance with an unsettling intensity. I thought about going to the police, but what would I say? That my neighbor sometimes carried heavy bags into his basement? That I had a bad feeling they'd think I was either paranoid or a nosy neighbor, so I started investigating. I kept a detailed log of Harold's comings and goings, when he left for work, when he returned, and most importantly, the nights he went to the basement. I even bought a pair of binoculars for late-night viewing. If anyone had seen me, they would have thought I was the crazy one. Over weeks, a pattern emerged. Friday nights, around 2 a.m., always after Harold came home much later than usual, often in an unfamiliar Corona night. My fear and curiosity finally overpowered my caution. I waited until Harold left, then crept onto his property. His basement windows were low to the ground, half hidden by overgrown shrubs. I pushed the branches aside, my heart pounding so hard I was sure it was audible. The glass was cool against my face as I peered in. What I saw still haunts me. The basement was spotless. Unnaturally so bright fluorescent lights illuminated a space more like a laboratory than a suburban home. Tables covered in equipment I couldn't identify, shelves lined with jars of unknown substances, and in the center, a large metal table with straps. But the walls were covered in photographs, dozens of them, different people. Men and women of all ages. Some photos had been crossed out with angry red marks. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. This was no longer suspicion. This was proof. I ran home, fumbling for my phone to call 911, but headlights swept across my living room before I could dial. Harold was back. Panic rooted me in place. What if he had seen me? What if he knew? I couldn't call the police with him right there. Sirens would give me away, so I did the only thing I could think of. I turned on every light in my house. I cranked the TV volume to max. I made as much noise as possible. It worked. Sorta. Harold froze, looking at my house with confusion and a flicker of anger. Then, instead of heading to the basement, he dragged the bag into his garage, kept up the noise all night, afraid to sleep by morning. I was exhausted, but determined. As soon as it was late enough, I called the police. I told them everything. The bags, the basement, the photos. I must have sounded unhinged, but something in my voice convinced them to check. The next few hours blurred together. Police cars flooded the street. Officers knocked on Harold's door. He was led away in handcuffs. Dogs searched the property, and then the discoveries began. Baddies in the backyard, evidence of horrific crimes in the basement. The number of victims climbed higher. As the investigation unfolded, the neighborhood was in shock. How could this happen here? How had no one noticed? But I had noticed, and the guilt of not acting sooner cut deep. Could I have saved some of those people? In the days that followed, I gave countless statements. The media called me the neighbor who had stopped a killer, but it didn't feel like victory. Not when I thought of the lives lost. Too couldn't sleep without seeing those photos on the wall. Every creak in the night made me flinch. Within a month, I moved out, but the memories followed. Even now, years later, I watch my neighbors more closely than I should. Every odd noise, every late night activity sets my heart racing, because once you've seen the darkness that hides behind a normal face, you can't unsee it. And if you ever feel that creeping suspicion that something's not right, don't ignore it. Don't let fear, doubt, or politeness stop you. Sometimes the monster isn't hiding under your bed. It's living next door. Sometimes the monsters aren't in the shadows. Sometimes they're mowing their lawn next door, smiling and waving. And by the time you realize it, it's too late. The moment those headlights filled my rearview mirror, I knew this drive wouldn't be ordinary. I didn't yet know that their glare would lead me into a kind of terror I thought existed only in nightmares. It was supposed to be simple. Me, my beat-up Honda Civic, and 300 miles of open highway between me and my sister's wedding. I'd made this drive a dozen times, always choosing the scenic mountain route over the crowded interstate. The views were stunning. The solitude, a welcome break from city life. I left late, around 9 p.m., planning to drive through the night and arrive just in time for the rehearsal dinner for the first few hours. It was peaceful. The radio kept me company, and my headlights carved tunnels of light through the forest. Then, just past midnight, I noticed a vehicle behind me. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The road wasn't busy, but the occasional fellow traveler wasn't unheard of. Except they didn't pass. They didn't fall back either. They stayed locked at the same distance, their headlights flooding my cabin with harsh white light. I squinted, trying to make out details in my mirror. A large pickup, maybe, but the glare was blinding. Unease crept in. Why follow so closely? There was plenty of room. To posse eased off the gas, giving them the chance. They slowed down. To my pulse ticked faster. I pressed the accelerator instead. The truck matched me effortlessly. That's when a second set of headlights appeared. Another vehicle, an SUV joining the chase. My hands tightened on the wheel. Two vehicles working together. In the middle of nowhere, I reached for my phone. No service, of course. The truck's engine roared, the sound bouncing off the trees. I flinched, swerving slightly before regaining control. They were playing with me. Predators circling prey. The SUV pulled up alongside. Windows blacked out without warning. It swerved toward me. I yanked the wheel, tires screeching, barely staying on the road. My heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't harassment. It was an attack. I floored it. 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. Too fast for these twisting roads. But safety no longer mattered. The truck and SUV boxed me in. Up ahead, a turnoff, no sign. Just a strip of asphalt vanishing into the dark. I wrenched the wheel and braked hard. Tires screamed, horns blared behind me. My pursuers tried to follow, but their bigger vehicles couldn't take the turn at that speed. The new road was rough, branches clawing at my windows. I took random turns, desperate to lose them slowly. The sound of engines faded. I was alone, lost in light through the trees. A gas station, its fluorescent glow like a beacon. I pulled in, shaking so badly I could barely turn off the engine. An old man stepped out. "You all right, miss?" The concern in his voice broke me. I told him everything, and his face grew grave. "You're not the first," he said quietly. "Folks get run off that road. Some disappear. Cops say they can't find anything." He let the sentence die. He locked the door behind us and let me call the police when they arrived. They took my statement, but their eyes told me they doubted it would lead anywhere. By morning, I was back on the road, avoiding that mountain route forever now. I stick to well-lit highways, always watching my mirrors, because once you've seen those hunters hiding behind glaring headlights, you can never unsee them. And if you're driving late one night and a car stays a little too close, trust your gut. Some drivers aren't going home. They're hunting. Next segment, airport. The moment I saw the unmarked crates being loaded onto that plane, I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. I just didn't realize my late night shift was about to turn into a fight for my life. I'd been working the graveyard shift at Millbrook International for 6 months. Not glamorous, but steady. Nights were usually quiet. Just me, a few security guards, and the occasional red-eye crew. Everything was routine until around 2 a.m. when I heard the unmistakable rumble of a plane taxiing in the cargo area. There weren't supposed to be any flights at this hour, and when an unscheduled landing happened, it was usually chaos, flashing lights, shouting, paperwork. This plane came in quiet to quiet. Curiosity tugged at me until I found myself at the window overlooking the tarmac. Staying tucked in the shadows, it was a plain cargo carrier, no airline markings, nothing to say where it had come from or where it was headed from. An empty hangar nearby. A group of men emerged, dark clothes, quick, purposeful movements. The plane's cargo hold opened one after another. They began unloading large, unmarked wooden crates. No barcodes, no shipping labels, no tracking tags. Every legitimate shipment at this airport was logged, labeled, and inspected. These boxers were ghosts. Should have walked away, pretended I hadn't seen anything, but I stayed watching. Then one man stumbled. The crate in his arms hit the ground hard. The lid shifted just enough for me to catch a glint inside metal. The smooth, unmistakable curve of a gun barrel. My stomach dropped. Guns smuggled through our airport. This wasn't small time, this was dangerous. I turned to leave, and my elbow clipped a metal shelf. The clang rang out in the still night. Every head on the tarmac snapped. Toward the window I dropped down, heart hammering, hoping they hadn't seen me for a moment. Silence, then angry, urgent voices, footsteps. They were coming inside, bolted. No more stealth. My sneakers slapped the floor as I sprinted out of the cargo area and into the main terminal. Security. I should go to security, but what if they were in on it? I ducked into a maintenance closet, pressing myself into the dark. Muffled footsteps passed by. She couldn't have gone far. Find her, and keep it quiet. We can't afford attention. I didn't wait. I slipped out and headed for the office. There was a landline there. My cell was in my locker. Too far. Halfway there, someone shouted, "There she is." I ran flat out, slammed the office door, locked it, grabbed the phone. 911. "What's your emergency?" "I'm at Millbrook International. Men smuggling weapons." The door crashed open. A gun barrel leveled at my face. The man behind it had cold eyes and a jagged scar. Dragged me back to the hangar stacks of crates, enough to arm a small army surrounded me. Well-dressed man stepped forward, his expression somewhere between annoyance and calculation. This complicates things. A missing airport worker will raise questions. He studied me. What's your name? Sarah, I whispered. Sarah, I don't suppose you'll forget what you saw. I stayed silent, I thought. Not sirens wailed in the distance. Everyone froze. Impossible. She didn't get the call through. Scarface snarled. The well-dressed man's gaze flicked to me. Seems our Sarah is more resourceful than she looks. Pack it up. Chaos erupted. Men loading crates back onto the plane at breakneck speed. They shoved me into a supply closet. Hands duct-taped. Something heavy wedged against the door. I heard the plane engines rumble to life then. Closer, boots on tile, police radios. I'm in here, I screamed when the door finally opened. A uniformed officer stood there. The rest of the night blurred. Statements, questions, coffee in a too-bright office. They'd found traces of the operation, fuel records, evidence in the hangar, but the guns, the men, gone. The detective leaned forward. Whatever you saw, Sarah, it goes deep. People high up want us to drop it. You might be in danger. We can offer protection. Maybe even a new identity, but your old life is over. As I left, in the cold morning light, I knew nothing would ever be the same. I'd seen behind the curtain, into the machinery that moves in the shadows, and I knew they were still out there, still smuggling, still killing, and they hadn't forgotten me. The night shift worker who saw too much, found the tent by following a thin trail of blood. Stealing myself, I ducked inside. The scene was chaos. Shredded sleeping bags, gear scattered like debris after a storm, and dark stains soaking into the ground. But there was no body, no sign of who had been staying there. Animal attack. That was my first thought, but if so, where was the victim? Then I saw the footprints, human, leading away from the tent into the dense forest. They weren't stumbling or erratic like someone injured. They were measured, evenly spaced, calm, purposeful, like someone walking away from a crime scene. A cold wave ran down my spine. This wasn't an animal attack. This was worse. I turned to leave, ready to pack my camp and hike through the night if I had to. That's when I saw Ita figure, half hidden behind a tree, 50 yards away, watching me. Our eyes locked for a split second before it bolted into the underbrush with unnatural speed. Panic took over. I ran, tearing back toward my camp, hands trembling as I broke down my tent. Every few seconds I glanced over my shoulder, certain I'd see that figure step from the tree stand. Snap, a twig not far away. Asterisk, another closer. Whoever was out there wasn't trying to hide anymore. Slung my pack over my shoulder and ran. No trail, no plan, just away. Branches whipped at my face, roots clawed at my feet, but I didn't stop. I could hear them behind me, fast, too fast, and they knew these woods better than I. Dee ran until my lungs burned, until each breath was fire, but the sounds never faded. They were gaining. Then my foot caught on a root. I pitched forward, tumbling down a steep incline, rolling and sliding, branches scraping my arms, until I slammed into the bottom. My backpack was gone. All my supplies, my map, my emergency beacon gun above me. Movement. They were still coming, ignoring the pain. I pushed on, slower now, careful not to fall again. Time dissolved into darkness. My legs ached, my chest heaved, but I didn't stop. Then light faint, flickering through the trees. Hope surged, but as I drew closer, I saw it wasn't a house or a headlamp. It was a campfire. I hesitated. Salvation or a trap? Out of options, I stepped into the clearing. An old man with a weathered face and a gray beard looked up from the fire. His eyes widened. Good Lord, child, he said, voice gravelly but warm. What happened to you? The words broke something in me. I collapsed, spilling the story in a rush. The bloody tent, the figure, the chase. He listened, face growing grave. You're not the first, he said at last. Been hearing stories for years. Hikers gone missing, abandoned camps, just like you saw. Most folks blame bears, but I've always thought something else. He leaned closer. Whatever's out there doesn't come near my camp. Don't know why. Don't care to find out. I spent the night by his fire, flinching at every sound at dawn. He gave me directions to the ranger station. Be careful. He warned, sun's up doesn't mean you're safe. That thing doesn't care about day or night. I made it back. But the rangers didn't believe me. They searched, found nothing years later. I still dream of the chase, the endless forest, the breath on my neck. The blood-stained hands reaching the wilderness lost its magic for me, because now I know the truth. Sometimes, the real monsters in the woods aren't animals. They walk on two legs, and they hunt. The crowd was a living, heaving thing, bodies pressed together, swaying as one to the thunderous beat in the chaos. I lost sight of Jess and Mike at first. I wasn't worried. We'd agreed on a meeting spot for moments like this. I figured I'd head there after the set, but as I tried to push through the mass of dancers, the crush of bodies became suffocating. The music was deafening, lights strobed in frantic bursts. Disorienting me, that's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see a guy about my age, tall, dark-haired, kind-eyed. He smiled, leaning close so I could hear him over the pounding bass. "You okay?" he shouted. "You look a little lost." I got separated from my friends. I yelled back. "I can help you find them," he offered, extending a hand. "I'm Tom." By the way, I hesitated. My parents had always warned me about strangers, but this was a music festival. Everyone here was a stranger. Tom seemed genuinely nice, and besides, we were surrounded by thousands of people. What could happen? "I'm Sarah," I said, taking his hand. "Thanks." He led me through the crowd, explaining that it was easier to stay together this way, but I soon realized we weren't heading toward the main stage. Instead, we were drifting toward the far edges of the festival grounds. "Where are we going?" I asked. "It's too crowded here," he replied. "From that hill, we'll have a better chance of spotting your friends." It made sense, sort of. Still, unease began to coil in my stomach. The music faded into a distant thrum. The lights didn't reach this far, and the darkness felt heavier. "Maybe we should go back," I suggested. "My friends are probably..." Tom's grip tightened just a little further. "Trust me." That's when I saw them, two men standing in the shadows near a cluster of trees. They straightened as we approached, one of them smiling in a way that made my skin crawl. Fear shot through me. I tried to pull away, but Tom's hand was like iron. "Let go," I demanded. The warmth was gone from his eyes. They were cold now, predatory now. "Now," he said softly, "don't make a scene. You wouldn't want to ruin everyone's good time, eh?" Hand clamped over my mouth from behind. I kicked, thrashed, but they were too strong. "Feisty one." A voice chuckled. "This'll be fun." They began dragging me toward a van I hadn't noticed, parked just beyond the tree line. Panic surged if they got me inside. I knew I'd never get out, so I went limp. The sudden drop of my weight made the man holding me stumble. His grip loosened just enough for me to wrench free. Branches whipped my arms. My heart hammered so loud it drowned out the music behind me. Footsteps pounded the grass. Voices shouted. I burst through the trees into the glow of the festival. The noise, the lights, the people, all at once. It was safety help, I screamed, running toward the nearest group. A security guard turned, saw my face, or maybe my pursuers, and started toward me. Radio already in hand, Tom and the others stopped at the edge of the crowd, glaring before melting back into the darkness. The rest was a blur. Police interviews, a hospital checkup, tearful reunions with Jess and Mike. I gave descriptions, knowing deep down the odds of catching them were slim. They had done this before. The thought made me sick. The festival continued, its music and laughter a surreal backdrop to what I'd just endured. Jess and Mike wanted to leave, but I stayed. I needed to reclaim something, to not let them take this from me entirely. For the rest of the weekend, I stayed glued to my friends, jumping at shadows, scanning every face. Sometimes I thought I saw Tom, felt phantom hands on my arm, but as hours passed, fear began to give way to something else. Resilience. I had faced the worst. I had escaped on the final night. As the last act took the stage, I stood with Jess and Mike, our arms around each other. I cried, not from fear, but from relief, gratitude, and determination. I knew healing would be hard. There would be nightmares, therapy sessions, moments when panic threatened to drown me, but in that moment, surrounded by thousands of people, I promised myself I would not let Tom, or men like him, winnow. When I hear the songs from that weekend, I don't just remember the fear, I remember the strength I found, the friends who stood by me, the strangers who helped hand. I dance, not despite what happened, but because of it. That night, I could have sworn I saw a figure standing across the street, staring up at my apartment window. When I blinked, they were gone. I told myself it was paranoia, the streetlights playing tricks on my eyes. The next day, a text came from an unknown number. Hope you're enjoying the guitar. It sounds beautiful when you play. A chill ran through me. How did this person know I'd been playing? How did they have my number? I tried to convince myself it was just Rick following up on the sale, but something about the message felt wrong. I replied, asking who it was. No response over the next few weeks. The messages continued, different numbers, always commenting on what I'd done, or where I'd been. Started noticing the same car parked on my street day after day. Once, I thought I saw someone duck behind a tree. As I left my apartment, I stopped playing the guitar, irrationally convinced it was somehow connected to all of this. Then came the photos. They started arriving in my mailbox. Me, at work, at the grocery store, meeting friends for dinner, all taken from a distance, all without my knowledge. This wasn't paranoia anymore. Someone was stalking me. Went to the police, but without a direct threat. There wasn't much they could do. They took a report, told me to document everything, and sent me home. That night, I heard a noise outside my bedroom window, a faint, deliberate click, the sound of someone trying to jimmy the Lockhart, pounding. I whispered frantically to the 911 operator. Sirens tore through the night. A few minutes later, footsteps pounded away into silence. When I finally looked, the street was empty except for police cars. On my windowsill sat a single red guitar pick. The officers took my statement, dusted for prints, and promised extra patrols, but we all knew it wouldn't be enough. Whoever this was, they were paid. Desperation. I decided to confront Rick. He was the only connection I could think of. I messaged him. To my surprise, he agreed to meet at the same coffee shop as before. Rick looked exactly the same, but his smile now felt predatory. I know, it's you, I said, forcing my voice steady. The texts, the photos. Why are you doing this? I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, he said smoothly. His tone dripped with false concern. Are you feeling all right? Don't play dumb, I hissed. I'll go to the police. You'll what? His voice hardened. Tell them the man who sold you a guitar is stalking you, without proof. The threat was unmistakably left, shaken. No proof, but certain now of his guilt. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the building made me jump. Around 2 a.m., I heard the sound of a key turning in my lock. Panic surged. I grabbed my phone in one hand, searched for a weapon with the other. The guitar leaned against the wall. The door opened slowly. Rick's voice slid out of the darkness. I told you I'd be seeing you around. I swung the guitar with all my strength. The sickening crunch was followed by silence. Shaking, I dialed 911. What followed was a blur. Police, interviews, court. Rick had been stalking not just me, but other musicians who'd bought instruments from him. My apartment was filled with evidence, photos, notes, daily logs of my routines. He went to prison. The vintage Stratocaster that started it all was returned to me months later. I couldn't bear to keep it. I donated it to a music school, hoping it would bring joy instead of fear. Years later, I still check over my shoulder. I triple lock my doors, and I never meet a stranger from an online sale without vetting them first. Asterisk, because sometimes the most dangerous predators hide behind a friendly smile and a too good to be true offer. Checking the cameras, I realized they knew something was wrong. Come out, wherever you are. The voice was sickly playful. I know you're here. I saw you find my little toys. I held my breath, pressing myself into the cramped closet, trying to make my body as small as possible. My palms were slick against the knife handle. Footsteps on the stairs. Slow, heavy, getting closer. The bedroom door creaked open through the thin sliver between the closet doors. I saw him tall, lean, and almost handsome, if not for the cold, predatory glint in his eyes. "You're a clever one, aren't you?" he said, his voice echoing in the still room. "But this is my game, and I know all the hiding spots." He moved toward me. I tensed, ready to strike. The second the door swung wide, phone rang, not mine, his. He froze, annoyed, then pulled the device from his pocket. "What?" He snapped a pause, his expression darkened. "No, not now. I'm in the middle of another." Pause. Fine, I'll be there in an hour." He ended the call with a curse, glanced around the room one last time, and said, "Don't go anywhere." His tone dripped with menace. "I'll be back to finish our game." I stayed still until the sound of his footsteps faded, followed by a car engine roaring to life. Only then did I breathe. My window was small. Minutes at most. I bolted from the closet, down the stairs, and out to my car. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. I sped down the mountain road, checking the rear view every few seconds. I didn't stop until I'd crossed to state lines at a rest stop. The adrenaline finally broke. I sat in my car and sobbed, the weight of what had happened crushing me. When I could breathe again, I knew what I had to do. The nearest FBI field office listened grimly as I handed over my story, the notebook, and the photos I'd taken of the hidden cameras. They assured me they'd investigate. Weeks later, the truth emerged. He had been running this game for years. Dozens of cabins, hundreds of victims. Some he only watched, others the agents didn't say. But their haunted eyes told me enough. My evidence helped bring him down, but it was a hollow victory. I still jumped at shadows, still woke sweating from nightmares of hidden lenses. I moved cities, started over, and learned to listen to my instincts. I never stayed anywhere I couldn't control. Again, years have passed. Most days I can almost forget, but sometimes, in a quiet room, I swear I hear the faint click of a camera shutter, and the fear comes rushing back. The first time I heard the screams from next door, I told myself it was just the TV. By the third night, I knew I was living beside a monster. When I'd first moved into the rundown building, my neighbor, Frank, had helped me carry boxes upstairs. His smile never quite reached his eyes. "I'm sure you'll love it here," he said. A week later, a muffled scream cut through the night. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, but silence followed. I convinced myself I'd imagined it the next night. It came again, raw terror in the voice, abruptly silenced this time. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard a shuffle, a thud, and nothing more. My finger hovered over my phone. 911 already dialed, but what would I say? By the third incident, the sound wasn't a scream, but a heavy dragging across the floor. Then a door slam. I crept to my window in the streetlight's glow. Frank was shoving something large into his trunk. I could swear a pale hand dangled from it. He called the police. By the time they arrived, Frank's car was gone. They knocked, got no answer, and told me to call again if anything else happened. Week of silence passed. I almost convinced myself I'd overreacted until the screaming started again. This time, it came from the apartment above. I ran upstairs. The door stood at sheeting covered the floor. A woman sat bound to a chair in the center, eyes wide with desperate hope. Frank stood over her, knife in hand. We locked eyes for a heartbeat. No one moved then. He lunged. I don't remember deciding to fight. One moment, I was in the doorway. The next, we were grappling. The blade inches from my throat. We slammed into walls, crashed into furniture. Pure adrenaline drove me until I kneed him hard and grabbed a lamp, smashing it against his skull. He dropped. I freed the woman and told her to run. She bolted. I turned back to keep him pinned, but the window stood open. A trail of blood led to the fire. Escape police swarmed the building minutes later, uncovering 3 more stripped apartments, all rented under false names and set up for whatever horror he'd planned. Frank wasn't Frank, and he was still out there. His real name was Gerald Hartley, and he was wanted in connection with a string of disappearances across 3 states. The woman I'd saved had been his latest target, but far from his first. In the weeks that followed, the full extent of his crimes came to light. Bodies were found buried in the woods outside of town. Trophies were discovered hidden inside the walls of his apartment. And the videos, I couldn't bring myself to watch them, but the haunted expressions on the detectives' faces told me everything I needed to know. I couldn't stay in my apartment after that. Every creak, every shifting shadow dragged me back to that night I moved in with a friend while I searched for a new place. Jumping at every unexpected sound, Hartley was caught eventually trying to slip across the Canadian border. The trial became a media circus. I had to testify, forced to relive every moment in painful, microscopic details. Seeing him in the courtroom, his eyes cold, flat, empty, made me realize just how close I'd come to being another one of his trophies. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, but even that didn't make me feel. Sci-fi kept wondering how many others like him were out there, hiding behind friendly smiles and offers to help carry boxes. It's been years now. I've rebuilt my life. I live in a secure building with plenty of neighbors and a state-of-the-art security system. Therapy has given me tools to manage the anxiety and the PTSD. I've never forgotten. I still check the locks 3 times before bed. I still wake some nights, heart racing, convinced I heard a scream, and I never ignore that gut feeling when something seems offy. Share my story now as a warning. A reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it's the person next door, but I also share it to prove that it's possible to fight back, to survive, to make a difference. So the next time you hear something strange in the night, don't just roll over and go back to sleep. Don't assume it's nothing, because sometimes the only thing standing between life and death, between saving someone or losing them, is a willingness to get involved. And remember, the most dangerous predators are often the ones hiding in plain sight. The moment I saw the unmarked van pull up to the loading dock at 2 a.m., I knew something was wrong. What I didn't realize was that my boring night shift was about to become a fight for my life, and a desperate race to expose a conspiracy far deeper than I could have imagined. He'd been working as a night security guard at Glenwood Tech for 6 months. Most nights were mind-numbingly dull. Just me, the hum of fluorescent lights, and an empty office building. At 10 p.m., I clocked in, nodded to the day shift guard, and settled in for another uneventful 8 hours. My first round at 11 p.m. was normal. Labs locked, server rooms secure, nothing out of place. But during my 2 a.m. round, things changed. From a window overlooking the rear lot, I saw it, a white van rolling up to the loading dock. That alone was strange. We never got deliveries this late. Stranger still, all company vehicles were clearly marked. This van was blank. 3 men got out, dressed like maintenance workers, but there was something about their movements, too coordinated, too alert, heads constantly scanning for witnesses. I reached for my radio to call my supervisor and hesitated. What if this was authorized? One wrong call, and I could lose my job. Instead, I decided to check it out myself. I made my way toward the dock, trying to look casual while my pulse hammered in my ears. As I got closer, their voices drifted toward me, low, urgent, gotta be quick, in and out in 10 minutes tops. What if the guard shows up? Take care of them. The words froze me where I stood. This wasn't maintenance. I started to back away and knocked over a stack of empty boxes. The crash shattered. The silence. Heads whipped in my direction. Hey, you there? Stop. I ran. Hard footsteps pounded behind me as I tore through the corridors. I couldn't outrun them forever. I needed somewhere to hide. I ducked into a research lab. That's when I saw it, a laptop still on, the glow of its screen cutting through the dark. Without thinking, I rushed to it. It belonged to Dr. Sarah Chen, one of Glenwood's top researchers. The open folder read, Project Blacklight *. I clicked schematics for advanced weapons financial records, with massive off-the-books payments, a list of high-profile names, politicians, military officials, CEOs, each with notes on how they could be manipulated. My stomach dropped. Glenwood wasn't just a tech company. It was the nerve center of something huge. and dangerous footsteps closed in. I spotted a USB drive and jammed it into the port. Copying everything, the door burst open just as the transfer completed. I yanked the drive out and dove under the desk, check everywhere. One of them growled that Rent-A-Cop couldn't have gotten far. I held my breath after what felt like an eternity. They moved on the second the coast was clear. I bolted for the security office. Locking the door behind me, the police weren't an option for all I knew. They were in on it. I needed to get the files to someone I could trust. I remembered a journalist who'd been sniffing around months earlier, asking questions about Glenwood's government contracts. I pulled up the newspaper's site, found his email, and sent him everything. The message sent notification had barely popped up when the first bang rattled the office door open up. "We know you're in there." Panic surged. I scanned the room, desperate. The ventilation duct, it was a tight fit, but my only shot had just managed to squeeze into the ventilation duct when the office door burst open. Holding my breath, I peered through the grate as the men stormed inside. "He's gone," one said, "but he was definitely here. Look, the computer's still on." Another replied, "Check the email logs." A third ordered, "See if he sent anything." My stomach dropped. They would know. I'd contacted the journalist. I had to warn him before it was too late. I crawled through the ventilation system, the metal creaking under my weight, the air stale and suffocating. I tried to picture the building's layout in my mind, praying I didn't take a wrong turn. After what felt like hours of cramped, desperate shuffling, I found a grate leading into an empty office. I climbed out, my muscles burning, only to realize I was now on the third floor, with voices closing in from the hallway. No way down, no time to think. Kai grabbed a chair and smashed the window. Cold night air rushed in the ground, looked impossibly far below, but my car was in sight. If I could just get to, I'd edged along the narrow ledge, refusing to look down at the corner. I spotted a drain pipe. It was a dangerous gamble, but my only chance. I gripped it and began sliding down, the rough metal tearing at my palms halfway down. The pipe groaned under my weight hand, then ripped free from the wall. I plummeted, landing hard in a dumpster. Pain shot through my body, but adrenaline shoved it aside. I rolled out, limping toward my car. Shouts erupted behind me as I slammed the door shut and roared out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, the white van appeared, headlights slicing through the dark. The chase was a blur of screeching tires and near collisions. I tore through empty streets, weaving between construction barriers and barely avoiding disaster. Finally, after several heart-pounding minutes, I managed to lose them. I didn't go home. I went straight to the newspaper's office. I needed to make sure the journalist not only received my message, but understood the danger. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind: police interviews, FBI briefings, media chaos. The stolen files cracked open a vast conspiracy. Defense contracts, illegal weapons programs, political manipulation at the highest levels. Arrests followed, corporations collapsed. The ripple effect reached all the way to government offices. People called me a hero, a whistleblower, but even as the headlines blazed, I couldn't shake the sense that it wasn't over. The real masterminds behind Project Blacklight hadn't been caught. 3 months later, I was proven right. Someone tried to kill me. I've been in witness protection ever since, moving constantly, never letting my guard down. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it, if trading my safety for the truth was the right choice. But then I remember what I saw that night: the weapons, the list of names, the sheer scale of their plans, and I know, no matter the cost, exposing them was the only choice. So if you ever find yourself in a boring night shift and something feels off, don't dismiss it. Don't tell yourself it's nothing, because sometimes the quietest jobs hide the most dangerous truths. If you step into the light, be ready, because the shadows will do everything they can to pull you back. Eni swallowed. My fingers tightened around the mug until I was sure it would crack. Okay, but it's late, I said. Why don't we? They both tilted their heads, the same unnatural angle, like marionettes waiting for the next pull of a string. Faint scratching sound drifted from upstairs. It was slow, Deliberate, the kind of sound you couldn't mistake for wind or pipes. Ma's lips curled into something that wasn't a smile. Don't go up there. The lights flickered once, then again. Longer this time. In that half-second of darkness, I thought I saw them standing closer. My skin prickled. Who's upstairs? Jack's voice came, flat and too loud for the small room. No one you can help. Ixed suburban street night. A narrow road winds through a quiet neighborhood. Streetlights buzz and hum, their glow pooling in yellow circles. It's almost midnight, but a soft drizzle patters against parked cars. Lone car, dented hatchback, creeps along, windshield wipers squeaking with each pass inside. Kate Parker, 22, college student. Exhausted but alert, she wears a thick hoodie and carries the aura of someone used to late-night skatey voiceover. Easy money. They said just keep them entertained. Till bedtime, feed them, lock the door. She glances at the GPS glowing on her phone. Mounted to the dash, Kate VOI. Babysat a dozen times. I've dealt with tantrums, sugar highs, and that one kid who thought it was funny to put peanut butter in my hair. But tonight felt different. Before I even got here, EXT. Russell House, NIGHT. The house sits at the very end of the cul-de-sac. 2 stories, curtains drawn on every window. The porch light is out. Kate pulls up, kills the engine, and checks her phone. 11:52 p.m. No new messages. She grabs her backpack, steps out. Rain slicks the driveway. KTT to herself. Guess subtle lighting's not there. Thinks she knocks after a moment. The door opens, revealing MRS. Russell, 40s. Thin, pale, eyes darting, like she's late for something. Mars, Russell, Kate. Thank God. Come in, come in. Kate steps inside. INT. Russell House foyer. An IGHT. The air feels still, almost heavy. Family portraits line the wall, but the glass in the frames reflects only the lamplight. Mars, Russell, we should be back by 3. Maybe for Emma and Jack are already in their pajamas. Just let them watch some TV if they can't sleep. Snacks are in the kitchen. Beat. Oh, and don't answer the door. Kate freezes. KT, sorry. Mrs. Russell, no visitors. No matter what, Kate blinks, but nods. Mrs. Russell grabs her coat, almost running out the front door, shuts with a dull thud. Kate stands there for a beat, listening. The house feels too quiet. T Russell House living room. An IGH. Kate drops her backpack on the couch and looks round. 2 kids sit side by side. EMM 8 and JACK 6, pale hair neat, hands folded in their laps. They don't move. They don't even blink right away. ATA. You must be Emma and Jack. I'm Kate. They both turn their heads toward her at the same time. May and Jack were fine. Kate forces a smile. Kate, cool. Wanna watch a movie? They don't answer. Faint scratching sound comes from somewhere above. Kate glances toward the ceiling. Kate, is someone upstairs? EMMA. Don't go up there. Kate frowns. The lights flicker. Once. Kate, oh vo. I told myself it was just an old house. Flickering lights, creaky floors, kids being weird because they could tell I was new, but I kept hearing it. That sound. Scratch, scratch. Pause. INT kitchen. An IGHT. Kate pours juice into 2 cups. The clock on the wall ticks loudly. Emma and Jack appear in the doorway without a sound. KT. You 2 want juice, or JACK? No, his voice is flat, too loud for the small kitchen. EMA. We're not thirsty. The scratching upstairs grows louder. Kate looks up. Kate, seriously. Is there an animal in the attic, or JACK? Tilting head. No one. You can help. The lamp hums faintly, like it's straining to keep the room lit. The mug in my hands has gone cold, but I'm too focused on Emma and Jack to cry. Force a laugh. Too thin to brittle me. That's a weird thing to say. Ma's eyes don't leave mine. Jack, still beside her, leans forward just slightly. In unison, they speak Oghanim and Jack. We're fine. The way they say it, measured.com, like they're reading it from somewhere in their heads, makes my stomach knot. SFX. Scratch, SER8TCH, comes from directly above us, measured, unhurried, like fingernails dragging over wood. My gaze flicks toward the ceiling. Me, who's upstairs? Silence. Emma tilts her head. That same too far angle, her hair sliding across her face like a curtain. Emma, Don't go up there. The light flickers once, then again, longer, flash, image. In the dark. For a split second, they seem closer. Their faces tilted just slightly. Toward, I blink. And there, where they were before. Me? Whisper what's going on here. Jack's voice comes out louder than before. Too loud for the small space. Without moving his lips much, Jack, no one you can help, I stand. My knees feel like they're filled with water. My phone is in my pocket. But my fingers won't quite grip. It tessifex. A slow, deliberate step upstairs. My breath catches me. Is that your mom? Asterisk. Emma's mouth twitches. Emma. She's not hear me. Then who's FX creak, creak. Something heavy shifts above Usta. Clock ticks loud in the quiet. The only light comes from the small table lamp. It makes the shadows in the corners look deeper, hungrier. Emma sits perfectly still on the couch. Her hands folded neatly in her lap. Jack mirrors her exactly. They don't blink. Kai set the mug down on the coffee table. Careful not to make noise. Baby side TTR. Alright, you're making me a little nervous. Guys, they don't respond. Day faint creak comes. From upstairs. Not the house settling heavier, like a step by BYCTTR. Trying to stay calm. You said no one's here but us, right? Emma turns her head toward. The stairs, not her body. Just her head. MA. They're here for youth. Lamp flickers, casting the room into strobe-like flashes. In one of those flashes, the kids are sitting closer. I didn't see them move. Babe side TTR, whispering what's going on. JACK. It's too late to leave. The living room felt colder now. Though no window was open, the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen seemed louder than it should be. Like the silence in the rest of the house had swallowed up every other sound. I tried to convince myself the noise upstairs was just the house settling. But the way Emma stared at the staircase made my skin prickle. Her eyes weren't just looking, they were fixed. Like she was watching something that I couldn't see. Jack, still mirroring her posture, began to slowly rock in place, his movements perfectly timed with the ticking of the clock. I swallowed hard. Emma, I said quietly, forcing my voice to sound calm. Who's here for me? She tilted her head the other way, almost unnaturally far, and smiled faintly. You'll see. The lamp on the table gave another flicker. Longer this time, the shadows in the corners stretching upward along the walls like living things. I blinked, and when my eyes opened, the kids were closer again, too close. I hadn't seen them move. My breathing picked up without my permission. I stood, trying to put some distance between us, but every step I took toward the kitchen felt heavy, like I was walking underwater somewhere upstairs. The creaking returned 2 steps. Then silence. I froze, straining my ears. There it was again, a slow, dragging sound, as though something was being pulled across the floor. My heart pounded so hard, I could feel it in my throat. Emma. Jack, I said, trying to make my voice firm. Is someone else in this house? Neither answered. Emma finally blinked, slow and deliberate. Not someone, she said softly, stared at her, unsure if I even wanted her to explain. Then, from upstairs, a sharp, sudden bang. The bang echoed through the narrow walls of the house, sharp and hollow, like a heavy door slamming in a room that shouldn't even have a door. My pulse spiked, my feet instinctively retreating toward the kitchen, away from the staircase. But Emma and Jack didn't flinch. They just turned their heads toward the sound in perfect unison. Their expressions unreadably told myself I should grab my phone, call someone, do something, but my body felt locked in place. It was as if the air in the room had thickened, slowing my every thought. My eyes darted to the hallway closet where I'd left my bag earlier, but before I could make a move toward it, the dragging noise upstairs started again, louder this time, heavier. It wasn't the sound of furniture being moved. No, this was softer, wetter somehow, like something heavy being pulled across old wood, leaving a trail. I didn't want to stepped forward, his little hands curling into fists at his sides. You should go see, he said quietly, his voice flat, almost mechanical. I stared at him. No, I managed. I think we're all staying right here. Emma's smile widened. showing just a little too many teeth. "It's already here," she whispered before I could even ask what she meant. A new sound joined the dragging, a slow, deliberate knock, not from the front door, from upstairs. 3 steady knocks, spaced far apart, each one vibrating down the banister like the pulse of some unseen thing. I couldn't stop glancing at the top of the stairs. The shadows there seemed denser now, swallowing the space where light from the hallway lamp should have reached. The air smelled faintly of something metallic. The kids began to hum a low, tuneless sound that didn't match any lullaby I'd ever heard. The hum grew louder, vibrating in my bones. And that's when I saw it. Movement in the dark at the top of the stairs. Not a full figure, not yet, just the outline of something impossibly thin, its limbs too long. Leaning forward as though listening to the hum, he took a step back and felt the edge of the kitchen counter press against my spine. My phone was in my bag, just a few feet away in the hallway. But between me and it were Emma, Jack, and the thing upstairs. The humming stopped, silence, and then the first step down the stairs. The babysitter's pulse thrums in her ears. The flickering light makes the kids' faces look wrong. Skin too pale, cheekbones too sharp. Jack tilts his head, a slow, bird-like motion, his eyes unblinking. Emma smiles, but it's not a child's smile. It's stretched too far. To knowing bycttr voice, trembling. "I think it's time for bed." "Okay." Neither moves. "ZMA. We're already where we're supposed to." "BBABYCTTR. And where's that?" "JACK. Hear another creak upstairs. This one is louder. Deliberate. Something scrapes along the floorboards above the babysitter's chest, tightens. Breath. Coming fast now. "BABYCTT. Are trying to mask fear. Your parents. They'll be home." Sunima slowly stands. Jack follows. Movements perfectly synchronized. They step closer, the lamplight catching something in their eyes. Not the warm brown she remembers, not even human. Black, completely black. Her body goes cold. "EMA. They won't make it in time." The babysitter stumbles back, knocking over the lamp. It hits the carpet with a dull thud. The bulb shatters, plunging the room into shadow for a moment. There's silence. The only sound is her own ragged breathing. Then a slow tapping begins on the front window. She turns toward it, her heart pounding in her throat. A shadow stands just beyond the glass, tall, impossibly thin, head tilted like the children. It doesn't move, but the tapping continues. Baby Weiss, tighter, whispering to herself, Don't look at HASK. You have to let him in. EMA. It's cold out. There BABYCTTR. Stern. Stay back." Her voice cracks. She reaches for her phone, but the screen flickers, then goes black in her hand. The battery was full earlier. She knows it was full. Another creak upstairs, this one closer, almost above her head. BABYSITTOR. Under her breath. "I'm getting out of here." She backs toward the front door, eyes darting between the children and the looming shadow at the window. Her fingers fumble with the locks. Every turn of the deadbolt feels too loud. Then she realizes the children are smiling again, not moving, just smiling behind her. The tapping stops. She pulls the door open. The cold night air rushes in, sharp and biting. For a brief, foolish moment, she thinks she's safe. The yard is empty, no shadow, no sound, except the whispering wind through the tree. She steps out onto the porch, clutching her bag like a lifeline. Her breath clouds in the air. She takes one step down the stairs, then freezes. Every single house on the street is dark. Not just dark, wrong curtains, drawn windows blackened, as if no one has lived there for years. She glances back at the open doorway. The children stand just inside, perfectly still, faces pale in the gloom. Their smiles have vanished now. They look sad. JC, softly, "You shouldn't have come outside." Day. Low rumble builds beneath her feet, like distant thunder, except the sky above is clear. She turns toward the street, and that's when she sees them. Figures, dozens of them standing in perfect rows along the sidewalk, tall, thin, motionless, all with their heads tilted the same way. She stumbles backward, toward the porch, but the door slams shut before she can reach either. pulse hammers in her ears, drowning out everything else. The figures on the street don't move, but she can feel their attention on her, heavy, suffocating. One of them, a woman in a faded floral dress, raises a hand and points directly at her. The rest follow, a forest of pale, unmoving fingers, all aimed at her chest. She backs toward the steps, not knowing where else to go. The boards creak under her feet, and with every groan of the wood, the rumble beneath her grows louder. Suddenly, the ground splits, not with a violent crack, but with a slow, deliberate opening, as if the earth itself were yawning. A dark gap widens in the street, swallowing the yellow lines and the crumbling asphalt. A smell rises from it, rot metal, and something like burned hair from inside the gap. She hears whispers, too many voices to count, speaking all at once, in a language her brain refuses to process. The sound pushes against her skull, making her vision blur. She clutches her bag tighter and bolts toward the nearest driveway. But the moment her foot hits the grass, it shifts, rippling like water. Her leg sinks to the knee. Cold fingers wrap around her ankle from beneath the turf. She screams, wrenching herself free, and falls to the ground. When she looks up, the figures from the street are gone, every last. When the silence that follows is worse than the whispers. No traffic, no birds, even the wind has stopped. As if the air itself is holding its breath, she scrambles to her feet, legs shaking, and forces herself toward the front door of the house. The steps groan under her weight, the wood spongy with age. Her fingers hover over the rusted handle for a second, then she pushes it open. The smell inside is thick, clinging, like the inside of a shut cellar that hasn't seen air in decades. The hallway is narrow, wallpaper peeling in long, curled strips. Family photos hang crooked on the walls, the glass in some frames cracked in the pictures. Everyone's faces are blurred, not by damage, but as if the camera had refused to focus on Thema. Dim light glows at the far end of the hall. She can't tell if it's electric or candlelight. It flickers, like it's breathing as she steps inside. The door closes behind her, on its own, not a slam, just a slow, deliberate click. She freezes, heart pounding, then forces herself forward, every step echoing louder than it should. To her left, an archway opens into what must have been the living room. Furniture is covered in white sheets, dust thick enough to blur the outlines of chairs, and a long, low couch. On the coffee table sits a single teacup, half full. The liquid inside is pitch black, as though it's absorbing the light around it. She doesn't touch it. Something shifts in the room above her, a dragging sound like bare feet shuffling across old floorboards. She tilts her head back, staring at the ceiling, but the sound stops then, faintly. A whisper. It's not in her head. This time it's coming from upstairs. The staircase groans under her first step. It's narrow, the banister wobbling under her grip, every rung coated in a fine layer of dust that leaves her fingertips gray halfway up. She pauses, because the whispering has stopped. That silence again, pressing in, suffocating at the top. The hallway stretches left and right, lined with closed doors. Some are swollen from years of damp, others crooked on their hinges. She takes the left first, drawn by instinct more than choice. The first door opens into a bedroom. It's small, child-sized. The wallpaper is a faded pattern of hot air balloons, and a small wooden bed sits against the far wall. The blanket is neatly tucked, but the pillow bears the deep indent of a head. It's as if someone was just lying there moments ago. She backs out quickly, closing the door without a sound. The second room smells faintly of mold and something else sweet. Rotting. A rocking chair sits by the window, and though the air is perfectly still, it moves in a slow, steady rhythm. Forward, back. She turns, and that's when she sees it at the far end of the hall. One door looks wrong. Its frame is perfectly clean. No dust, no cobwebs. It almost gleams compared to the rest of the house. But the handle is dark, wet, even as though something has been dripping down it. She steps toward it. Every hair on her arms rises. Her hand hovers over the knob, and the moment her skin touches it, a cold shock runs through her. From the other side comes a voice, not a whisper, not a scream, just a calm, quiet sentence. "You shouldn't have come here." Her breath catches in her throat. The voice wasn't muffled by the door. It was as if it had been spoken right against her ear. She jerks her hand away, stumbling back a step. The silence that follows is worse than the words she waits, straining to hear something, anything, but there's nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, no creak of the floorboards. It's almost as though the house itself is holding its breath against every shred of instinct, screaming for her to leave. She turns the handle. It turns smoothly. Too smoothly for a door in a place like this. The hinges don't groan. The wood doesn't resist the room beyond is empty. No furniture, no dust, no shadows even, as though the light in here is somehow wrong. It's soft, but it has no source. No lamp, no bulb, no window, just a pale, flat glow that seems to come from the walls themselves. She steps inside. The air is warmer here, humid, almost damp against her skin. It smells faintly metallic, and the floor feels different beneath her shoes, smoother, like stone instead of wood. The moment she crosses fully inside, the door slams shut behind her. Her heart kicks into overdrive. She spins, rushing back, but there's no handle on this side, just a flat, seamless surface, as though it had never been a door. At all, she turns again and freezes. The room isn't empty anymore. In the far corner, something is standing. It's human-shaped, but too tall. Its limbs too long. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side. Its skin looks like wet paper, and where its face should be is only a smooth, featureless expanse. It moves, not toward her, but closer, as though the space between them had just folded in on itself. One moment, it's across the room. The next, it's just a breath away. She can't even gasp. Her lungs won't work. The thing is so close now. She can feel a faint heat radiating from it. The kind of heat that feels wrong, like it's coming from something alive but not breathing. Her instincts tell her to back away, but when she tries, her heel strikes the wall far too soon. It shouldn't be there. The room was larger a moment ago. Now it's pressing in. The walls creeping closer, in silent, deliberate increments. Her hands go out behind her, searching for a corner, a seam, anything, but the surface is slick, almost wet. And every time she touches it, she feels an unsettling give, like there's something just beneath the surface. Shifting, the faceless thing tilts its head the other way. Now it's studying her, or at least it feels that way. Without eyes, without a mouth, its expression is a void, and yet somehow, she knows it's waiting for her to speak. Her lips part, but the air in here is heavy, thick enough to taste like rust, like coins pressed against her tongue. She blinks, and in that blink, it's gone. Her chest heaves in a half sob, half breath, but relief doesn't come. The room is empty again, but it's not the same room. The walls have no corners now, just seamless curves leading upward into darkness. The floor has changed to something darker, and when she takes a tentative step, the surface ripples underfoot. The sound starts then, a low, resonant hum that seems to vibrate in her bones more than in her ears. It's coming from everywhere at once. Something shifts in the dark, above and then dripping. A single drop lands on her cheek. Warm, she wipes at it without thinking.